Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. Idaho is a big state and it covers a lot of territory. Idaho Matters wants to take you to every corner of the Gem State by visiting all 44 counties, and we need your help to do that. Email us your story ideas at idahomatters@boisestate.edu for our new series we're calling Idaho 44. And be sure to join us each weekday at noon and 8 on Idaho Matters and travel the state with us. From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. How can AI help seniors with their mental health? And as you age, why do your sleep patterns change? These are just two of the questions that will be part of the Symposium for Successful Aging that's coming to Boise in September. It will look at everything from eating smart to stay healthy, managing stress, and aging with a purpose. So joining us now for a preview are Dr. Margaret Sass. She's a distinguished faculty member at Boise State University, and Savannah Hypes, a licensed clinical social worker and an insomnia and anxiety specialist. They're part of the symposium put on by the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. I want to welcome both of you to the show.
Hi. Thank you.
Savannah, let me start the conversation with you today. You spend your time helping professionals who can't sleep, and you also treat things like nightmares and anxiety and insomnia. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trained by the VA, working with veterans who experience all of these concerns: trauma, anxiety, insomnia, nightmares. And it was really a kind of throw you into the fire and figure out what works kind of situation. So I have a big background in really understanding how sleep works and working together with all the different providers on a person's team to figure out how we can kind of get through this problem together. At VA, it's like a very team approach. So that's my background. But now I'm in private practice. So I just work for myself, and people find me online and say, I can't sleep, help. And I really help them through that difficulty.
And Margaret, what about you? How did you get involved in artificial intelligence and seniors?
Well, I was working on a course at Boise State regarding community projects, and I decided to kind of test it out for myself. And my passion has always been working with senior citizens, especially when my parents are 86 years old and 87 years old. So I felt like it was really important to investigate. So I started actually doing in-person workshops at the senior center talking about AI tools for seniors. And then I noticed that they were interested in that continuing throughout. So I've developed some courses and some books free for them to use so they can learn more about AI that can actually help them in their lives.
So Savannah, you also look at sleep in older adults. So how our sleep changes as we age. So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, how does it change over time?
There's a lot of things that change. So it's very normal for any person to wake up multiple times during the night. That's something a lot of people I work with go, I just want to sleep and not wake up. And they don't realize that it's a normal part of sleep to wake up a couple times, to double check your surroundings, make sure, I'm still in the same room, I'm still in the same bed, I'm still in a safe environment. It's an evolutionary kind of protective measure that your brain takes to just double check that we're still good to be asleep and then roll over, go back to sleep. Most people don't remember that happens, but it does happen to all of us. As we age, that tends to happen more often. And there's a few different reasons for that. As we age, we've got a lot of other comorbidities going on. We've got chronic pain. We've got bladder issues. I have to get up to urinate more often. A lot of different things like the way I metabolize caffeine and medication changes. As my metabolism slows down, it takes a lot longer for caffeine to get out of my system. So there's a lot of reasons why I'm just going to wake up more frequently. The brain also just tends to spend less time sleeping in certain stages when we get older. So it's just normal to wake up more throughout the night, especially as women going through specific changes like menopause. You're going to have a lot of physical symptoms happening during that time, like hot flashes and headaches and things that are going to disrupt your sleep. So it's actually normal during that time to be waking up quite a bit. Some other things that change as we age that impact our sleep, something you might not think about, but our vision changes. So when our eyes start to degrade and we're not seeing quite as clearly, that may seem like a random thing that wouldn't impact sleep, but a big part of how our brain knows when to tell us to get sleepy is by the timing of our light intake. So our brain in the morning, when we open our eyes, we open the blinds, we go outside, our eyes take in sunlight, and that communicates to the clock in the back of our brain that says, hey, it's daytime, it's time to be awake and alert. And then when the light decreases in the evening and it's been dark for a bit, our brain goes, oh, it's been dark, it must be nighttime. Let's start getting sleepy soon. So it sends our body's clock messages about what time it is. And when our eyes start to degrade, or when we start to spend a lot more time indoors, like when we're retired and we don't have quite as many reasons to leave the house, we're not getting as much light exposure. Or if we are, it's not quite making it all the way through our eyes back into our brain. So our brain gets a little bit less confident about when is daytime and when is nighttime, and it might not as firmly communicate to your brain that it should be feeling alert or when it should be feeling sleepy.
Okay, so with all of that said, Savannah, are there certain things then, maybe on top of just these kind of natural biological things that are going on, that are keeping folks who come to you from getting a good night's sleep that maybe they're not even aware of?
Absolutely. So a lot of people think, especially family members of older adults, will assume that the older adult just is going to be less active as they get older. And they'll encourage them to spend more time in bed, to take naps, to go to bed early if they're feeling tired. And while some of that is appropriate, oftentimes, especially adults who are having trouble sleeping, they will go to bed early because they think, I really want to get a good night's sleep. Let's really try and maximize the time that I might be able to sleep for. And they'll go to bed too early when their brain is actually not ready to be asleep yet. And what that causes is that the person's going to lay in bed and just be awake for a couple of hours. And that actually trains the brain to see the bed in the bedroom as a place to lay awake rather than as a place to be asleep. So the brain develops an association with the bedroom that it's cool to be awake here. This is fine. So over time, the more anxious you get about not sleeping and the more you try to make sleep happen by going to bed early, you're actually causing yourself for it to be less likely that you're going to get a good night of sleep. And it's better if you keep yourself really active during the day, try to minimize those naps if possible, and go to bed later than you think you should. You'll be a lot better off.
So, Savannah, how can we train our brain and our body to work together to give us a good night's sleep?
Yes, the brain and the body already know how to work together. They are designed very well to do that. But we sometimes get in the way of that. So like I mentioned, going to bed too early, taking naps. Other things that we do are we start to get nervous about if we have an off night of sleep, which is going to happen to anyone. There's just going to be times when for a week or so, you're not sleeping great. Usually your body will figure out how to get back in sync with your brain. But if you go, oh man, I had such a bad night, I better stay in today. And you start canceling plans because you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be my best self. I don't feel very energized. I probably should just lay low. You actually do yourself a disservice. What you do is your brain has what's called a drive for sleep, very similar to the drive for food. It's like a hunger. And when you don't eat for a couple of hours, you start to get hungry, and that tells you you need to eat and you're ready to eat. Same thing with sleep. If you lay low all day inside, very low level of activity, you're not allowing your hunger for sleep to build up. You think, oh, I'm tired, I don't have a lot of energy, I'd better lay low. But you're actually causing your hunger for sleep to like go numb a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
similar to, sometimes if we're not very active, we will find that we don't really feel very hungry because we've not really built up a hunger. So, what we need to do is get ourselves really hungry for sleep by being as active as we can, both physically and mentally. And if we do that, and we only use our bed for sleep rather than for reading or watching TV or doing work or other things, we're really communicating to our brain, this is the place to be asleep. And I'm only going to get in this place when my hunger for sleep is really high and I'm ready for sleep. Not just when I feel tired, not just when I feel sad, but actually when my eyelids are heavy, when my head feels heavy, when my body is giving me cues that it is ready to fall asleep very soon. So that's how we nurture that relationship between the brain and the body. They know what they're doing, but when we try to control it a little too much by jumping in here with, let me stay inside, I'm feeling a little tired today, let me go to bed a little early tonight, we actually screw up the system.
Hmm. I want to go back to something that you mentioned about everyone sometimes just not having good sleep. And
Hmm.
I mean, just the other day, my 13-year-old experienced insomnia, and so of course I got to be up quite a bit of the night with him. But he, goes to sleep, got a couple of hours of sleep, gets up to go to school, and he's perfectly fine. And he it was so funny because he was like, I'm not even tired. I can't believe this. I'm not tired. And when I pick him up from school, I was like, how was your day? He was like, fine. I wasn't even tired. And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I said, so sometimes you get insomnia. You just get it. And you know what? You're usually totally fine when it happens. So the next time if this happens, don't be so anxious about it. Just kind of know that, your body's doing what it'll do and everything will kind of work out. And I know that's a 13-year-old, but I mean, I think we all go through those phases. And if you get anxious, I would think that then almost plays in, Savannah, to you not being able to get good sleep.
It does. There's what I like to tell people is that yes, your body and brain know how to regulate sleep on their own, but there is kind of an override system. So our brain has something called the arousal system, and it is designed to keep us awake if it's not safe for us to be sleeping, if we're too vulnerable. So if we're not physically safe and it would be too vulnerable to fall asleep right now, it doesn't matter how high that drive is. It doesn't matter how much light you got during the day so that your brain knows it's time for sleep. That arousal system is going to say, nope, I'm taking control. I'm going to keep you awake because it's not safe to be asleep right now. That's really functional when we're in a dangerous situation. It's not super functional when we have evolved to the point that we are able to create a pseudo dangerous situation in our minds just by
Mm.
thinking anxiously, thinking, oh no, what if I don't sleep and tomorrow ends up being terrible and I'm mean to my friends and then everyone hates me and I end up alone. If that's what I'm thinking, I have created kind of a false reality of the rest of my life being alone. And I've created that reality in this moment in my mind. So that arousal system kicks in and says, whoa, 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 it sounds like you're not very safe right now. It's misperceiving like a physical safety with a kind of an existential type of safety. And it
Mm.
keeps you up. So you really have to pay attention to what you're telling yourself about sleep and about your future.
And another part of the symposium, as I mentioned, when it comes to successful aging, is mental health. So, Margaret, can you talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence and seniors? Because I would assume that AI can be good and not so good.
That is very accurate. So, with seniors, I feel that AI can be really useful for companionship and for mental stability, activity, because they can actually interact with AI, have discussions, have conversations, ask for assistance, etc., especially when no one is available. So that was one of the main reasons I started looking into AI was that I know that volunteering in senior centers, a lot of them are lonely or by themselves. And I was trying to figure out how AI could actually help them with that.
Hmm.
Also, they can use it for games, creating videos, telling stories, etc., which all stimulates the brain. So my goal was to actually educate them about not being scared of AI, even though there are some scams out there, but to use it in a way that would be helpful to them.
Margaret, what would you say the biggest difference is between seniors and younger generations when it comes to AI?
Ironically, a lot of my students are actually, or my college students are a little bit scared of using AI because a lot of people are scared of things they don't know a lot about. So
Hmm.
even in the college arena, I try to educate them how to use AI ethically. And it's the same thing with seniors. They're also really scared of AI, but once I start showing them how to use the tools in a safe way, they're a little more open to it, just as they would be for the younger generation. I don't have any younger kids like you do, so I don't know how they react to AI, but I have a feeling that they're embracing it a lot based on my
Oh,
just hearing nieces and nephews. Like they're creating amazing things using AI. It's unbelievable sometimes.
I have to tell you, Margaret. So I have a senior in high school and I have an eighth grader, and they are the ones who have truly, I think, educated me on AI and my husband, and I'm not like afraid of it anymore. Like I see what a great tool it is, right? And you brought that ethical part up, right? But they have fully embraced it and what you can learn from it, right? I mean, my husband's a bit obsessed with asking Chat GPT questions all of the time. Um, but it's really fascinating. So is that kind of part of it? Is maybe trying to get seniors over that hump of like this is actually a great tool if you know how to use it.
Yes. I mean, sometimes during the workshops, I will show ChatGPT and then compare it to Gemini because the responses can be slightly different, but it's
Hmm.
accessible and it's free. So I purposely emphasize that part and how to protect themselves against collection of information that they're sharing, what they should share and not share. When I do that type of workshop, they are asking me questions like how to make a recipe, how to travel to Bryce Canyon, how to get surgery in Turkey. And then they realize that they can ask it anything and check the links. It is amazing what they ask it. It's fascinating, actually.
So before I let both of you go, I want to ask both of you this question. And Margaret, I'll start with you. Why do you think symposiums like this are so incredibly important as we age?
I think we should be lifelong learners forever, and Osher Institute is one of those places where you can be educated as much as you want about anything, and it's information that all of us can learn from. I think sometimes senior citizens are forgotten in the world of education, maybe because they've experienced so much, but we're always able to learn more and do more no matter what age we are.
And Savannah, what about you? What are you hoping people take away from a workshop like this and the importance of it?
I really agree with what Margaret said. I think even sometimes we ourselves, or older people themselves, are discounting their own ability to engage in life and to learn new things. And I think that sometimes is the biggest thing that causes us to kind of decompensate is when we decide that there's nothing left for like new experiences for us. So
Mm.
these kinds of things I'm hoping will give people a sense of, wow, there's a lot more for me. There are things I can do to better my life. There are things I can do to help me engage in a more enjoyable and valuable way in my day to day that really helps me feel connected and excited to live to the next day and to keep growing.
Well, I want to thank you both so much for coming in and talking with us today. We've been speaking with Dr. Margaret Sass. She is a distinguished faculty member at Boise State University, and Savannah Hypes, a licensed clinical social worker and an insomnia and anxiety specialist. We've been talking about the fact that they are going to be part of the Symposium for Successful Aging. It will be in September at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute in Boise. Of course, those dates for the symposium, September 16 and 17. I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.